Good day, my people, my people, my people. My name is Chief Strongblood, St. Vincent and the Grenadines' favorite and most hated son. Does anyone in St. Vincent and the Grenadines find it strange that Ralph Gonsalves and his government is borrowing money from the National Insurance Scheme of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? My people, we have to stop hiding our heads in the sand like the ostrich. The National Insurance Scheme is not a lending institution. It is not a bank. It is not a development bank. It is not a commercial bank. It is not a central bank. The National Insurance Scheme is designed to invest the monies of its members into shore projects to ensure that they can get their benefits in the time they are supposed to be getting their benefits. Ralph Gonsalves used the National Commercial Bank as a development bank. The National Commercial Bank is not an development bank. Ralph Gonsalves caused the National Commercial Bank to go bankrupt on 2 occasions. The first occasion, it was financed by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. It was put back on its feet. And the second occasion, when the governor of the central bank realized that the source of the problem that is bankrupting the National Commercial Bank have not changed and they have not reformed the way in which they interact with the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves' government, he decided it's a waste of the Caribbean's money, the OECS money, to finance the St. Vincent and the Grenadines National Bank for a second time. That is why it is now in private hands. Ralph Gonsalves also solicit the management of the Kingston Board to lend the government money. Sorry, not the Kingston Board, the Building and Loan Association. The Building and Loan Association is a building society. It is not an institution that is designed to lend governments money. And we know that Ralph Gonsalves has a history of not paying his debt when he borrowed money on behalf of the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. At one point in time, you heard Ralph Gonsalves in a press conference saying, "You all are trying to make my government fail, but you will not get through." He was speaking to the manager of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Building and Loan Association. He was speaking to the manager of the National Commercial Bank. When they tried to involve in prudent management of their members' resources, he became upset and started issuing threats and started blaming them for trying to cause his government to fail. Now, the National Insurance Scheme is trying to put demands on people. For example, small businesses. They are trying to cause small businesses to pay National Insurance Scheme. The current economic situation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not able to support the business enterprises that are functioning in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, from the vendors on the street to the regular business that is registered with the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The circulating capital is too small. So when you are going to now make it mandatory for small businesses to pay National Insurance Scheme dues, you are now taken away from the profit margin of these business. If a legitimate business has an insurance scheme for their workers and they have a pension plan for their workers, they are not obligated to be a part of the National Insurance Scheme. The National Insurance Scheme was set up for those institutions and businesses that did not have a pension plan or insurance for their worker. Then they can now ensure that their workers becomes members of the National Insurance Scheme, and they will be able to get the benefits from the National Insurance Scheme because those businesses, those enterprises does not have an alternative. But once a business has an alternative, they are not mandated to pay in to the National Insurance Scheme. They are not mandated, and no one can make it mandatory for them to do that. But any prudent business that can afford to employ up to a number of people and is profitable should ensure that they look out for the retirement and the illnesses of their employees. If a sole trader is operating in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, he has the obligation to ensure that he protect himself, either by having an insurance scheme for himself, a pension plan for himself with some private company, or he can now become a member of the National Insurance Scheme. You see what is happening? This new push to extend the age of pension, this new push for pension reform in St. Vincent and the Grenadines comes because Ralph Gonsalves had been using the National Insurance Scheme as a development bank. The National Insurance Scheme is not supposed to be lending money to any institution or to the government. The government should not be pressuring the management of the National Insurance Scheme to lend them monies. That is why it is important that you employ professional in these fields, because a professional would have preferred to leave the job than to put at risk the pensions of its members, to put at risk its ability to ensure that its members are properly taken care of when they are sick and when they become disabled. All of this new push with the National Insurance Scheme is because Ralph Gonsalves have been borrowing money from the National Insurance Scheme and he has not been paying it back. There is an instance where Ralph Gonsalves' government borrowed over $1 million from the National Insurance Scheme. They refused to pay it back. And when it became public, although they would have forfeited their rights to borrow money from an institution that is not supposed to lend money, they went and they borrowed another $1 million to pay back the first $1 million that they borrowed. Corruption in high places. All of these people have to be sent to prison for all of the corruption that they were involved in. All of their properties must be confiscated to ensure that they are able to pay back for all of the illegalities and other people who they put into difficulties because Ralph Gonsalves used his authority as Prime Minister to pressure these managers into giving the government loan from institutions that were not designed to give loans. Speaking of pension reform, and if we don't have pension reform by 2024, and they're speaking about raising the contribution that members are paying and extending the years at which they can receive their benefits. It seemed like the whole objective of Ralph Gonsalves and his cronies that is managing the National Insurance Scheme is to ensure that Vincentians die before they can receive their benefits, because Ralph Gonsalves is using it, the finances in the National Insurance Scheme, to run the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Why isn't Dr. Friday, who's being paid to oversee the actions of the government, why is he not bringing this to the public attention? Why is he not filing a case against the National Insurance Scheme for acting outside of the scope of its duty, of the scope of the law that is put in place to govern it? Why is he not bringing an injunction to prevent the director of the National Insurance Scheme from lending money to the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines? Why is he sitting back and allowing Ralph Gonsalves to take advantage of the resources of the country? And he's doing nothing, but every month he is receiving a pay. It is said that Dr. Friday is the richest man in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He don't care. So he sit back and he allow his father Ralph to do what he please with the resources of the government, because he will be able to take care of himself. He will be able to fly back to Canada and live in Canada when the bottom fall out in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Ralph Gonsalves, you can't manage the affairs of the country. Step aside and let someone try. You have proven that you are incompetent. Step aside and let someone else get a chance. You have bossed two financial institutions, the National Commercial Bank and the St. Vincent Billing and Loans. And now you have put the National Insurance Scheme in financial predicament. Step aside and let somebody solve the problem that you have caused in the country of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's a good thing. The Most High have blessed me with a level of wisdom, and those things are easy to solve. But I will solve them when the time is right. My name is Chief Strongblood, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, favorite and most hated son, the diaspora machismo.